We are halfway there through another week here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. It is Hump Day, Wednesday edition here of Mic'd Up on PSL and brought to you by Martin Lawn Services. You can contact Martin for all your lawn care needs at 412-849-5894. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and joined as always by Mike Vukovcan here on Mic'd Up on PSL and, of course, also Pittsburgh Sports Now, where we go through some topics here in the morning, hit them as quick as we can and let you go about your day, and hit up our sites for our coverage throughout the day. On this show, we're going to be a little Pitt heavy early on, touch on takeaways from Pitt's season as they now have lost and been eliminated in the first round of the ACC tournament with a 79-73 loss to Miami. That whole situation this year, the bumpy roller coaster ride that it's been, in particular the emergence of Justin Champagnie and what his future may entail and whether or not we believe he should leave Pitt and seek professional basketball, something that we probably wouldn't have thought would even be a conversation a year ago, as great as he's played this year. And then a little surprising topic that I think really hit everybody with maybe some humor, but also some surprise. The Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame releases their finalists. Notable names there: Chris Bosh, Chris Webber, Bill Russell, who's obviously in as a player, also now potentially going in as a coach. And granted, he did have success as a coach as well. We'll leave that for a debate for another day. But Bob Huggins, WVU's head coach, not going in. 899, didn't get 900, doesn't get the Hall of Fame. It's been a rough go for the past week individually for Bob Huggins. Of course, he's not going to talk about it right now with them looking at a conference tournament and NCAA tournament this year. But we're going to talk about it because it's just simply asinine. And then also some Steelers news with Bud Dupree not going to be franchise tagged, so what his market value really is. And this team without him, because many Steelers fans will remember they hated him. He was the butt of jokes a couple years ago, but has become a very underrated player for this team and the league. So, Mike, to get things started off, Pitt loses. They're now out of the ACC tournament. We mentioned our thoughts on an overall grade for the Pitt season this year. We both were in the C range because no expectations entering the season. At one point after a win over Duke, who is not a tournament team, they have since been worse, but that was a staple win. People thought Pitt could maybe be a tournament team. They puttered that away. Pitt now not going to obviously be a tournament team, losing a lot of their games at the end of the season to a lot of teams they probably shouldn't have lost to in kind of embarrassing fashion. Champagnie did emerge. They dealt with a lot of players leaving. We also talked yesterday on the weirdness now between Heather Lyke and Jeff Capel. So a lot to unpack there, but what are your overall takeaways on this Pitt season? It's been very weird. It's been up and down, and it's kind of ending in a funk and controversial, I guess.
Yeah, they're finished season 10-12, fifth consecutive losing season, and that's pretty historic because Pitt hasn't had 5 consecutive losing seasons since 1964 to 1969.
There you go.
Yeah, so this isn't good. The couple takes that I have, I'm not going to bring up anything that much positive because when you lose, you lose.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not looking for positives.
We keep it here. We keep it real here on Mic'd Up.
Yeah, I guess the concerning thing for me, the biggest concern for me is that Pitt's biggest weaknesses heading into the season still exist. And that raises the question about, was there any progress made? They still lack a center in the middle that can do more than just get rebounds. They have no presence in the middle, either defensively or offensively, which puts too much pressure, I believe, on their guards. Right. They don't have that with Hughley being suspended. Who knows what his future is. They still lack a consistent three-point outside shooter. They needed that. They haven't had that forever. They still don't have that. and they also don't have the overall depth that you need to compete consistently in the ACC. We thought that with some of the older guys, that some of these freshmen we're not going to need to be playing fresher minutes, and they were going to maybe be that depth. Well, yeah. They needed to play, which now brings into question Capel needs to add more players. So I don't know that this team or this program is much better than they were at the end of at the beginning of the season, which is distressing if you're a Pitt fan. The other thing that I've been harping on, and it's become more evident, I think I'm going to write a column about this tomorrow. I was talking to some people. There's not a lot to, I don't know that there's a lot to criticize Jeff Capel about.
Okay.
But I think he needs to take a lot of criticism for this, and he still hasn't given a good explanation. And I believe he might have cost his team some games with this, is his handling of Nike Sabandi.
You mentioned this on an earlier show.
Yeah, and once again today, he scored 24 points. Before that, he scored 23. He only played because of the kids leaving the team, and everyone's asking the question why. Prior to the end of February 28th, he only had one game where he played 20 minutes in a game. Like, for what reason? You don't have a Duke roster here. You don't have a Kansas roster, or a roster that's full of talent that says, you know what, you're not doing it in practice. You need to pick it up.
Yeah, pretty set lineup.
Yeah, they don't have that. They needed that. This is a guy that averaged 15 points a game through his first 3 seasons, which means that he could score. And how many 1-point games or games that came down to the stretch that he could have contributed to?
The only pushback is it because of the experience level of Xavier Johnson and company, and maybe Tony, and also maybe a concern defensively?
No, I know that defensive thing has been brought up to me, but that doesn't hold any water to me, because
you got to have the points.
Yeah, you got to have points. You got to have points somewhere. Kareem Koulibaly, all he does is rebound. He gives you nothing offensively. So you're not playing him because he gives nothing offensively. Like, you can't say, well, I don't want to play him because he can't play defense. Well, so what? He can score you points a game.
Right.
That's what you need.
Right. There's a lot of basketball players, and even in the NBA, that get on the floor because they can score, and that's all they do.
I think I'm still shaking my head as to why this guy hasn't played. He can play a multitude of positions. He can play 2, a 3, and a 4 in a lineup. It's not as though he's just a point guard. He could have played multiple positions. Right. And to me, Jeff Capel, unless there's a really, really good reason why, it's inexcusable for him not playing Nike Sabandi throughout the season. And I think he cost Pitt a bunch of games, or potentially cost Pitt games because of that poor decision.
It's definitely a head scratcher, and it's something that we may honestly never know the answer to, because I don't know if Jeff Capel really wants to give that answer, because it probably is a criticism of him. Obviously, this season didn't go the way it was supposed to go for Pitt, or at least not the way it's supposed to go after where they were entering 2021 and how they played even into the month of January. And I think in addition to that issue, they were Champagnie and that kind of concern, and why he hadn't played more and how well he's played after Xavier Johnson and Tony left the program and he was forced in there, is, like it or not, and I understand COVID, and I understand the depth, and I understand Champagnie can't do it alone, because there were also points in the year where people thought maybe Xavier Johnson could be that Robin to Champagnie's Batman, but that never really came to fruition. And we'll segue here in a second, but as great as Champagnie was in the first half of the year, he did also decline a little bit towards the end, despite still certainly being the best player on the team. But nonetheless, another year where the end of the season is significantly worse than the beginning. And even if there's expectations, or even if there's not, that's almost like a Pitt football thing too. That's just kind of a concern for Pitt fans, that you'd rather end. I feel like fans would rather have the team end on a hot note and lose early and have it, it could have been more because of that early season loss, rather than start out hot and then just putter it away, because then it leaves you less hope for the future. At least if you end hot and sucked early, you can say, okay, we're going to turn it around next year. But definitely a head scratcher there. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here, mic'd up. Pittsburgh Sports Live's morning show here. Make sure you subscribe down there. Free to do so. Thanks to, of course, Martin Lawn Services, with that sign behind Mike and the number to call them. Mike, that's going to then segue into the other story of Pitt's offseason now. Justin Champagnie, who, again, prior to this past season, I don't know if the casual fan even knew who he was. He emerged this year as a star. Many were talking about him as the best player in the entire conference as far back as December. He had a 30-point triple-double this year. People were comparing him to Shaq, just a lot skinnier, going back to his college days. He has the ability, clearly. I don't know if the size is there. He certainly hasn't been as great second half as he was first half. In your eyes, and you've seen a lot of college sports, and you know friends of yours that have dealt with this with their kids. Maybe you're dealing with it with your kids at some point in the future, hopefully for you. Should Justin Champagnie leave Pitt and seek the NBA? Is he ready for that? And then what do you think he's going to do?
Capel was asked about that today, and he gave the answer that he should have gave,
Right.
and that he's going to consult with Justin and his family, and that he owes nothing to the Pitt program, and that
best for him, right?
Yeah, what's best for him, which is what you have to say. I don't think personally that Justin Champagnie is ready for the NBA. However, if he gets a guarantee from a team, I guess when he goes, he's going to go through the draft process.
Right.
Can't do that, pull their name out as long as he doesn't sign.
Yeah, that's in the last few years, right?
Doesn't sign with the agent. If he gets a guarantee that he could be a first-round pick, then he has to go. However, if he's nothing but a second-round pick and it's not even guaranteed that, mm-hmm. I don't see the benefit, because I think he can improve. I think.
What if he's a guaranteed second round? What if it's second round, but he is guaranteed to get drafted?
I wouldn't. I would go back to school. I think he has areas of his game. I question whether or not, and I'm far from an NBA scout.
Sure.
But I just don't see his game. I don't believe he shoots well enough to be an effective NBA player right now. I don't think he handles the ball well enough.
Is size a concern?
Yes, and his game, his bread is buttered in college because of the fact that he's able to out-rebound and outwork everybody.
It's not going to happen in the NBA at his size.
A 6'5", 6'6" guy isn't going to do that in the NBA, which means that he needs to be a better ball handler. He needs to play defense better. Right. And his three-point game needs to improve. It improved this year, but I think another year it could improve. His stock isn't going to go down. It can only go up.
Well, as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, barring an injury, he can only get better as far as in Pitt's offense.
Right.
Capel will no doubt focus this offense next year around his talents, which will showcase them. So, but I honestly, I have no read on it. Might be what his brother does. They've talked about being a package deal as far as what one does the other. His brother was named first team Big East with St. John's this season.
Right.
So I don't know. And there's also, I don't know. I have a read yet on what he's going to do. I don't think he should go, but I'm also not his family, and I don't know what kind of money he's guaranteed, but I think for the betterment of himself, he could improve his overall game by coming back to Pitt for next season.
I do think there's concerns about him in the NBA. I think the size is a major issue, because you mentioned in terms of his height. When you look at that and who he's going to be compared to position-wise, he's going to be on the shorter end. He's going to be on the skinnier end, and he's only a few inches taller than, say, like a Chris Paul or those type of players, and people look at them as short, great players in the NBA. He's not that much taller. I don't think he's as bulky, and they're gonna kind of feast on him a little bit. And the only way to get around that for, like, say, a Steph Curry, which is obviously a major comparison, a totally different player, but the way he was able to get around that being so skinny, or Reggie Miller prior, they just have an incredible shooting touch. They can shoot from anywhere on the court. Right. If he doesn't have that outside shooting game, because it's such an outside shooting league now, if it's just a jump shot for him, that's going to be snuffed up, and they can just kind of ruin him having the opportunity with his shot. If he can shoot that outside the arc and get really range with it, that's why Steph Curry is a Hall of Famer and two-time MVP, because he can. If we're picking a team outside on the park, I don't think any of us would be picking Steph Curry just on look of him, but he can just hit a shot from anywhere. Yeah. That's not the case right now with Champagnie. And having another year where you're the best player and the MVP will be good. The only way it's not is if he gets hurt. I don't think the team winning or losing will hurt him next year. Individually, he'll get better, and Capel knows how to build players as well.
Yeah, plus he'd be a liability in the NBA as far as defense goes. And you got to remember, last season coming into this season,
defense,
he had no off season as far as hopefully things are getting better with COVID,
right.
And he will have a full season to work with his team, to work individually, to work with, is to improve his game. He had he didn't have any of that last season, and he still got better. So just imagine the year,
Yeah.
A year of working with, the Pitt assistants and Ronald Ramon, who was a great 3-point shooter with Pitt.
Unless he needs the money, unless he really needs the
right.
money.
Yeah, but he's going to have to hear from the NBA personnel on what
Right.
on where they see him going. And as you mentioned, his performance, while he still put up double doubles, his performance did trend downward over the last few weeks, and it probably has to do with the fact of minutes and the amount of 38, 40 minutes a game, because he had no breaks on there unless he got in foul trouble. So
getting the assists is big. I can't imagine him getting 10 rebounds a game in the NBA, but if he can get 4 or 5 assists like he's been doing at Pitt, that's big because that shows talent. That'll get him on the floor in the NBA, but the double-doubles aren't going to be there. I can't imagine him banging underneath for boards.
No, well, our topic, third topic, which was a big national topic yesterday was I found this to be
funny. It's a funny one almost.
Yeah, it's funny, sad. I don't even know what it is.
Right.
Bob Huggins not making it despite 899 wins. I actually called around to some people, some basketball people, to try to ask, is there something that I'm missing? Like, is there? Did he? Did they got pictured? Like, I'm trying to think of what.
Well, he's a fiery guy. Did he piss someone off? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to ask. Like, is there an underlying reason here that is going above my head here as to why this guy is not in the Hall of Fame? It's totally crazy.
To say the least, Mike, and honestly, my exact word when I saw that Bob Huggins was not a finalist was asinine. It's my favorite term, but it's really, really fitting for this. And if you saw even the quote responses when WV Sports Now put this up, even Pitt fans were saying this is just crazy. We're getting laugh out loud responses. It just, you look at it and it doesn't make sense because you look at the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, and this would be a whole different show, but I can go on and on how I do feel it's the easiest Hall of Fame to get into out of the major Hall of Fames. You look at the Pro Football, Hockey's Hall of Fame, certainly the National Baseball Hall of Fame, which is really hard to get into. It's an easier Hall of Fame. You look at players, basically, if you were a prohibited all-star for many years, regardless of whether you win or not, regardless of whether you win individual awards or not, you're mostly getting there. And it's not just for the NBA. This is a Hall of Fame that is about your international play, about for collegiate play, as well as in the NBA. So that's how, for example, Grant Hill got in, despite all the injuries in his NBA career that wouldn't have been enough. He had the 2 national titles at Duke, great player there, so it bumped him in. It's an easier Hall of Fame to get into. You look at who got in as finalists, because it encompasses NBA players with Huggins in this group that was the semifinalists. Chris Bosh getting in, Chris Webber getting in. Yeah.
Chris Bosh is how does Chris Bosh have better credentials than Bob Huggins?
Well, that's the thing, because again, and I'm not to say Chris Bosh doesn't deserve to get in based on the standard the Hall of Fame set. I certainly don't think he has the better credentials, but he got in by riding a dynasty, by being the number 3 guy in a dynasty and a few other all-star appearances. Chris Webber, a great player, college, a Fab 5 representative should be there, so I'm happy that they're going to have that, it looks like. And he had a solid NBA career as kind of an underrated beast, and what he's doing now in media, I think he deserves to be there. So it's not so much about them not deserving to be there, but yeah, you bring up Bosh. I think Huggins should be there before Bosh. You look at the standard the Hall of Fame has set in terms of just college coaches, to make this a fair comparison, on who's in and when they get elected. And this includes somebody who recently passed away that everyone loves, that I think absolutely deserves to be there. John Chaney, no national title, Hall of Fame, less wins than Bob Huggins. Eddie Sutton, no national title, less Final Fours, less deep tournament runs, less wins than Bob Huggins. And you look at the guys who have more wins than Bob Huggins in Coach K, Bobby Knight, those coaches. They had blue blood programs, that Jim Boeheim, that helped them get all these recruits. Bob Huggins, and we've talked about this before, and I've talked about this before all over the circuit, everywhere that wants to hear me. He's done it with multiple schools, but none of them being blue bloods. He's never really had a 5-star. He's only had a couple NBA players, and Kenny Martin and then Javon Carter and a few other great college players. He's had multiple Final Four teams, both kind of out of nowhere. Certainly the 2010 Mountaineers weren't predicted to do that prior to the season. He's won a conference title. He won what Pitt didn't get to, which is the only jealousy between those two programs during that gauntlet of a bit of the Big East, where WVU got a Big East championship during that gauntlet run because Bob Huggins won it, and $8.99 is just impossible to ignore. So I do believe eventually he's going to get there, but it is just simply asinine to make him wait any further. These coaches are getting in while they're still coaching. I don't know. What if he would have got 900 the other day? Would that have made a difference? Like, this is just crazy. I don't know if there's something personal there. He is very outspoken. He has been outspoken this year. He, a lot of the time, does talk negatively about referees. Maybe voters don't like that. I don't know. You listen to Mike, and you know this. Anyone who played for Bob Huggins raves about him, and even opposing coaches, whether they're for a rival or not, they rave about him. Jamie Dixon loves Bob Huggins, and they had all those battles over the years. I can't think of anyone who would have clout in college basketball that would have a vote even or have influence like a Dickie V, a Fran Fraschilla, Jay Billis, Jay Williams, or even coaches like John Calipari, Coach K. They always publicly talk about loving Bob Huggins and respecting him for everything I said and doing it his way. And some of them have votes. And I don't know if they didn't. I don't know if maybe they love him publicly and secretly hate him. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it was too log jammed with who they had to put in there. And they do bump in Bill Russell. Bill Russell was already in as a player, obviously, and now gets in as a coach as well. And Huggins can't even get in. So it's insane.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I thought about doing my own commentary on Mic Drop about this, but I thought to myself, what am I even going to say? Like $8.99, 2 Final Fours, Sweet 16, Elite Eights, conference titles, all the players. What the hell? I don't know. I mean, I imagine he's going to eventually get in, but I don't know how sense is made of this, and I feel like somebody out there needs to answer to this. I feel like somebody needs to answer to this because it doesn't make sense.
That's the story. Somebody have to put the guys on the West Virginia site or somebody. You need to get a hold of multitude of voters of national names,
and they're not going to tell probably, but
yeah, but they need. But they could speak to him not being in.
$8.99.
Yeah. There's somebody that will.
Right.
Outspoken people. You get a Mike DeCourcy. You get a. Seth Greenberg, people like that will start. Jay Billis is not afraid to say anything.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Jay Billis tweet. I haven't seen that yet on Huggins.
Like, we need to get a hold of some national people with voices to not ask for their vote, but to address that icue because it's just stupid.
Flat out, it really is. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here, mic'd up. My show's Mic Drop, mic'd up here in the morning on Pittsburgh Sports Live and PSN. The other news as we kind of round things out here for this Hump Day morning show, Bud Dupree not going to be franchise tagged. Days with the Steelers numbered, it looks like. I guess they could figure something out. He's coming off an injury. He's been a solid player the last couple years. Prior to that, certainly had his hiccups where fans made fun of him. A big impact player. How big of a loss would Bud Dupree be no longer being on the Steelers? And then what do you think the market's going to be for him? He's an underrated great player, but is coming off an injury and has been a guy looking to cash in, publicly saying he wants to cash in for 2 years now. And it sucks he's coming off an injury because I don't know if he's going to fully cash in, but there got to be a market for him somewhere.
Yeah, it'll be interesting how him and his agent decide to play this. Do they take a safe deal, take a 1-year deal? That could be the only way that I see him returning to the Steelers is that if he comes back and proves that he, was the player he was the last couple of seasons.
Right.
That would be the only way. If not, you look for the team that has the most cap space and pencil them in there. The team that I can see right now that definitely needs a pass rush, would be the Raiders. They missed. They need one big time. They had
since Khalil Mack.
But as far as his impact on the Steelers, I just don't think they're in a position to pay him big dollars.
No.
I like wide receiver. The Steelers have always shown a history of being able to find that guy on the edge to get off the quarterback or to get after the quarterback. And I think as long as TJ Watt is there, I think the amount of focus that a team's going to have to stop him, that's going to help out Alex Highsmith next season when whoever.
A lot of pressure on Highsmith now, though, because TJ did allude to this in his end of the season thing with Alan and I were on, that he didn't want to throw Highsmith under the bus, but he said he played great, but he noticed a difference and more difficulty for him with Bud being hurt. So basically saying, I was better with Bud over there because Bud's a veteran. This guy's learning. So it'll be interesting next year.
Yeah, and Highsmith, as I mentioned with Champagnie, Highsmith didn't had no off season to work with the Steelers and to learn. He was good. He was thrown in on fire. So it's his first year, smaller conference coming from Charlotte. I think his game will be better. I'm not worried about him, and assuming Dupree does leave, that'll move up as a draft need for the Steelers. They'll find a guy that come off the edge, either that or I'm sure there's somebody in free agency that they can target. But I think if you would ask the Steelers fans 3 years ago or 2 years ago,
they hated him.
They had bought him a ticket to get the hell out of town. Now, I don't want to say he's overrated because he was a good player and he did what he was supposed to do. Right. But I think the Steelers can find somebody that does what he does as long as they still have TJ Watt on the other side there. I think their defense will be fine.
Yeah, unless the market is dry for him because of the injuries, he doesn't get what he wants, and then he crawls back to the Steelers, kind of what you were alluding to. Yeah. Okay, I'll come back for 1 or 2 years and let me try again to try to cash in, and at least we'll try to win for these 2 years. And then, because prior to this season, if he played like he did 2 years ago, I was thinking there was no chance of him coming back just because, as you mentioned, they have so many needs. They knew they were going to have these needs, and it's not where you need to spend the money. I do think he certainly will be a hit not being there, and Highsmith will have more pressure on him, but you're not going to throw tons of cash at him. So if he's able to get the cash and willing to take it, he's going to go somewhere else and rake it in, maybe to a bad team that'll pay him, maybe overpay him. If he's in a situation where he wants to really be on a winner, that might be a concern. Maybe he'll come crawling back to the Steelers for a year or so. Or if the market's dry because of the injury, then he'll be back to the Steelers possibly. Generally speaking, though, when you have a player who you publicly do not franchise, that wants money and you have tons of needs, that's usually writing on the wall that you're basically agreeing that you're done with each other and he's going to go seek elsewhere. Yeah,
one other thing is and I think this people are looking at that we talked yesterday about the Dak Prescott deal.
Sure.
There's a huge thinking out there as far as national media is that the new TV deal that is being negotiated with the league.
Yeah, for the 17th game. Yeah.
For the 2022 season, maybe there's some wink wink deal with the Steelers. That, hey, Bud, you sign a 1-year deal, you come back, you prove yourself.
Right.
There's going to be a lot more money for us to spend in 2022. We can take care of you then. There could be some gentleman. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, but that's why I'm not worried too much about Minkah Fitzpatrick and Watt and those guys, because I think Ben will be off the books by then. Right. And I think their cap situation will be a lot better in 2022. And I do know that Dupree loves playing here, loves Pittsburgh, loves being a part of this defense, loves being TJ Watt. So maybe that plays into it. So like I said, it wouldn't shock me, but that's a risky thing to do, to take a 1-year deal when you're coming off an injury, because there's no guarantee that you're getting back to where you were, and he could, be throwing away a lot of money.
Especially from where he was 3 years ago, because to his credit, he really made himself a lot better in which he thought was going to cash in. This injury was horrible timing for him, because if it was not for the injury, he would be getting a mega deal, maybe not mega, but he'd be getting a good money somewhere else and be very coveted, and he would be long gone from the Steelers. The only blessing in disguise for Pittsburgh and for TJ having somebody over there on the other side is Bud's injury may force him to crawl back to Pittsburgh. So the injury hurt the team that year, but may actually help them the next year. So we'll see. That does it for the Hump Day edition here of Mic'd Up on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Stick with us every day here on the Pittsburgh Sports Live channel. Check out the site. Check out our coverage throughout the day. We'll hit all the breaking news and analysis on our Pittsburgh Sports Now family of networks. For Mike Vukovcan, for all of us at Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now, I'm Mike Asti, and that does it here. It's Hump Day, folks, so we're close to the weekend. We're halfway there. Enjoy the rest of your day.